I believe we have been predisposed to think about the wrong things about God. We have been led to focus on God's power and physical qualities. But I'll tell you that the greatest thing that God wants to be known is not his physical power. The point I'm making is that even though we tend to think of God in terms of power, and God is almighty, yes, but this is not the greatest thing about God that we need to understand. You know, there are people who are convinced that God is the most powerful person in the universe, and they are deathly afraid of God. You think they have the right knowledge of God? If your knowledge of God makes you afraid of him, or make you careful when you get near to him, you don't have the right knowledge of God. And that is a problem that exists in the world and in Christianity today also, where people think of God as the great terror, and they don't see the true side of God that we really need to see. This God, before the world was created, before the universe was created, what was the condition of his heart? And when he made Adam and Eve, how did he really feel about them? What did he want out of them? You can think of two things. All right? There are two pictures. God made man and put him on the earth, and God says, look, I want you to obey my rules. And if you obey the rules, I will treat you good and you will be mine. And if you break the rules, I'm going to cut you off and I'm going to put you to death. Is this the way God is? Is God the kind of person that says, look, if you walk the chalk line and you prove yourself to be good, I will treat you well. But if you prove to be disobedient and you step away from my will, I'm going to hurt you. Is that the kind of person God is? So, and this is why I'm asking the question, because I know that you can be confused. There are reasons to think both ways. And that is one of the reasons why many people have the wrong idea. You read the Bible, but in reading the Bible, it's important that you read all of it and come to understand what is the underlying message. Because as Brother Peter says, there are places in the Bible that will give you that impression that this is the way God is. I'm going to tell you that I am convinced that for 2,000 years the Christian world has misunderstood the plan of salvation. There is a distorted view of God. I can just go to the simplest place, all right? I love you. My heart is love. But if you don't serve me, I'm going to roast you in a fire forever. That makes sense? And yet the Christian world believes this, okay? The great majority of the Christian world holds to a doctrine. God is a God of love. We are the children of God. God wants to save us. And if we don't serve him, he's going to roast us forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Recurring decimal. All right? So, and you're supposed to believe that God is a God of love. That doctrine sets your mind to split in two. Right? It has made people mad. It's set to tear your mind in two. It's giving you two ideas that are impossible to reconcile. Because the doctrine of a God who burns people forever, it's not that you burn forever, it's that God keeps you alive so that you can burn forever. He tortures you forever and ever. And they say it is a God of love. Now, that's the most extreme one. And it's amazing because the Roman Catholic Church is 1-point-something billion. They are half of Christendom. The evangelicals are maybe another 90% of the other half. Okay? Evangelicals. And they believe the same thing. The people who don't believe that God will roast people forever are a very tiny minority of Christians. So what kind of concept does the Christian world have of God? And what kind of concept of God do they present to the world? And even those who believe that God will just put sinners to death and he won't roast them forever, which is a far more sensible thing, but even these, they still have a distorted concept of the plan of salvation. Okay? And because you have this distorted concept, they have a view of God which is unworthy. It's like this. Let me tell you the concept they have. It's like this. My son, Dave, steals something from me. And because Dave steals something from me, I'm going to put him to death. First of all, you are horrified that I'm going to kill my son because he stole from me, right? First of all, you are thinking, what kind of terrible person is David? He's going to kill his son because he stole. The next thing that happens is, I say, I would like to forgive Dave, my son. But I can't just forgive him like that. Somebody has to die. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to put Daniel to death instead, if Daniel will accept it. Daniel is my other son, right? So I'm going to put Daniel to death to satisfy me, so that I can set Dave free. Now, if it sounds crazy to you, it is crazy. But it is the popular idea of the plan of salvation that exists in the Christian world. So, one of the blessings that God has done for us in this ministry is that God has helped us to understand that the plan of salvation, this is not the way it is at all. But God has blessed us to understand that the truth about what God is doing. God never said to Adam, if you take the fruit, I will kill you. You can't find that in the Bible. What God was telling Adam was that if you step over into that ground, something terrible is going to happen to you. It's like you say to a child, don't walk on the edge of the tank. If you walk there, you're going to die. Now, you're trying to help the child. You're trying to save the child. But somebody says, you hear what he said? He said, if you walk on the tank, he's going to kill him. Somebody has taken your truth and distorted it so it becomes a message of threat. It becomes a threat. Instead of something helpful, it becomes a threat. That's the way Satan distorted God's words from the beginning. When man went ahead and took the fruit, death entered his experience. Why was he going to die? Because he stepped away from God. And when you step away from God, you step into death. Because God is life, and without God, what is there? He stepped into death, and he was supposed to die. But through mercy and through the grace of God, because Jesus Christ says, I will take their place, something was worked out that this life could be restored to the human race. It was a question of man losing life and God working out a way to restore life to the human race. It's not God punishing and threatening. It's God trying to find a way to save those who brought death into their experience. The point I want to make is that this is the first place where you see God's love opening up. God so loved the world that what? He gave his only begotten Son. It's like Howard has done something terrible, some disease. He has contracted some disease. He did something stupid, okay? I told him not to eat the thing and he ate it, and now he has a disease that is eating out his life, and the only thing that can save him, he needs an organ transplant. And the only person who has that organ and that blood type that it can work is my son, Daniel. And the only way I can save Howard's life is if my son will accept to give that organ to Howard, that I lose my son. That's the only thing that can save his life. And for me to agree to that, well, I'm telling you, if you think that's an easy decision, you don't know me. And you don't know my son and how I feel about him. But it's something like that. It's a pale illustration because the truth is the gift that God gave, it goes deeper than that. But God gave his son to bring life to the human race, but he had to give him up. And I don't mean he gave him up to get him back. When God gave us Jesus, he gave him to us forever. God lost something. There's something that Christ had before that he gave up forever in order to become one of us. It was a real sacrifice. And when you understand this sacrifice, that opens up your mind to the truth that God is a God of love. Popular Christianity, they don't understand this and they can't understand it. You know why? They say Jesus was not really God's son, he's God himself. The Trinity doctrine that Christendom believes takes away the sonship of Jesus. They believe that Jesus is God, not really the Son of God. It's just a title. It's just a designation, but he's not literally God's son. And if it's like